Namaskar and welcome. You're watching our special coverage of the Modi government's first budget in its third term. The Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has presented in the lower house of India's parliament over a 90-minute long speech where she laid out 9 priority areas from youth to women, farmers to MSMEs, and who will be the main beneficiaries of her key proposals. These are the key areas. My name is Mark Lynn. With me is Gautam.
Yes, thanks, Mark. And there's a lot to talk about in this budget. The changes in the slabs in the new income tax regime, the high capital gains taxes, scrapping of angel tax where investments in startups is concerned, and a major focus on job creation and even a critical minerals mission. And we'll be doing just that over the course of the next few minutes. But first, let's get to what is the topmost as far as the budget is concerned.
Indeed, India's India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has presented the budget for 2024-25. This is her 7th straight presentation of the Union budget, and this is the first budget during Prime Minister Narendra Modi-led government's third term.
While presenting the budget in the lower house of India's parliament, the Finance Minister said that the government is focusing on the poor, the farmers, women and the youth. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman added that despite global turmoil, India's economic growth continues to shine and will remain so in the years to come.
India's economic growth continues to be the shining exception and will remain so in the years ahead. India's inflation continues to be low, stable, and moving towards the 4% target. Core inflation, that is non-food and non-fuel, currently is 3.1%. Steps are being taken to ensure supplies of perishable goods reach markets adequately.
And let's take a look now at the highlights of the Union budget in this report. The Union budget 2024-25 provides the necessary impetus to the Amrit Kal vision of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. On the expenditure side, on infrastructure, rupees 11,111 crore rupees has been allocated for capital expenditure, which is 3.4% of GDP. But effective capex is 15 lakh crore rupees. On promoting clean energy, a taxonomy for climate finance to support the country's climate commitments and green transition. For agriculture and allied sector, rupees 1.52 lakh crore rupees allocated. For MSMEs, credit guarantee scheme for purchase of machinery without guarantee. Self-financing guarantee fund will provide guarantee up to 100 crore rupees. Limit of mudra loans doubled to 20 lakh rupees. MSMEs allowed to unlock working capital by converting trade receivables into cash. To boost formal employment, 1-month wage to all newly entering the workforce in all formal sectors. DBT of 1 month's salary in 3 installments to first-time employees registered with EPFO. Eligibility limit for the scheme up to 1 lakh rupees per month. Scheme to benefit 210 lakh youth. Internship opportunities in 500 top companies to 1 crore youth in 5 years to gain exposure for 12 months to real-life business environment. 5 schemes for employment, skilling and other opportunities for 4.1 crore youth over 5 years with a central outlay of 2 lakh crores. Rupees 1.48 lakh crores for education, employment and skilling. Rupees 3 lakh crore for schemes benefiting women and girls. Development of investment-ready plug-and-play industrial parks with complete infrastructure in or near 100 cities. 12 industrial parks under the National Industrial Corridor Development Program to be sanctioned. Mechanism for spurring private sector-driven research and innovation at commercial scale with a financing pool of 1 lakh crore rupees. One-stop solution for labor issues with comprehensive integration of eShram portal with other portals. On the revenue side, Customs duty reduced on some medicines and medical equipment, mobile phones and related parts. Fully exempt customs duty on 25 critical minerals. Expanded list of exempted capital goods for manufacture of solar cells. Reduced customs duties on certain seafoods. Exemption on inputs of manufacture of shrimp and fish feed. List of exempted goods for manufacture of leather and textile garments, footwear and other leather articles for export expanded. Reduction of customs duties on gold and silver to 6%, platinum to 6.4%. Certain parts for manufacture of connectors and electronics exempted. Customs duty on ammonium nitrate increased to 10%. Customs duty on non-biodegradable PVC flex banners raised to 25%. Certain telecom equipment's duties reduced to 15%. 58% of corporate tax came from simplified tax regime. Short-term capital gains to attract tax rate of 20%. Long-term capital gains to attract a tax rate of 12.5%. Simpler tax regime for foreign shipping companies operating domestic cruises. Safe harbor rates for foreign mining companies selling raw diamonds in the country. Corporate tax rate on foreign companies reduced to 35%. Personal income tax rates up to 3 lakh rupees nil. From 3 lakh to 7 lakh rupees 10%. From 10 lakh to 12 lakh rupees 15%. From 12 lakh to 15 lakh rupees 20%. Above 15 lakh rupees 30%. Total receipts other than borrowings estimated at 32.07 lakh crore rupees. Total expenditure rupees 48.21 lakh crore rupees. Net tax receipts estimated at 25.83 lakh crore rupees. Fiscal deficit is estimated at 4.9% of GDP. The aim is to reach a fiscal deficit below 4.5% next year. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, the Union Finance Minister on Tuesday announced 9 priorities in the Union Budget 2024-25 for generating ample opportunities in the economy. The FM announced 9 key priorities that will drive the government's efforts to generate opportunities for all citizens.
This budget envisages sustained efforts on the following 9 priorities for generating ample opportunities for all. Number 1, productivity and resilience in agriculture. Number 2, employment and skilling. Number 3, inclusive human resource development and social justice. 4, manufacturing and services. 5, urban development. 6, energy security. 7, infrastructure. 8, innovation, research and development. And 9, next generation reforms.
And we are joined in the studio by Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi, the Vice Chancellor of the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. And also joining us on Zoom link is Lieutenant General Anil Bhatt, retired, who is the Director General of a space, ISPA. Thank you very much for being with us. Well, we'll start with you, Professor Joshi. So from the external sector, I mean, we see that there are a lot of changes being made to customs duties. How do you think that's going to impact? I mean, are we going to have a much bigger, sort of incentives for our exporters as a result of this? I mean, as it is, our exports are growing pretty well, but we really need to boost there.
Thank you, Mark. If you see that, this budget has shown a consistency in its approach, and when it goes to the external sector, there has been targeted intervention, which I think has been made in the budget. Now, especially you see that over the last 7-8 years, India has emerged as a major exporter of the mobile phones, and you see the basic customs duty on the mobile phone is reduced to 15%, and the same thing is, we are also a large hub for export of the gems and jewelry, wherein you have seen the duty on the gold and silver is reduced from 6 to 4%. So I think reduction in duty is always beneficial for the exporters. So if we reduce the duty, then the exporters find it easier that to import the inputs, and importing the inputs then to manufacture those goods. So this has been the problem which I think think we were facing, in which I think some rationalization has been done. You see, and there are a number of things. The critical mineral is another thing wherein we were facing problem, and we have exempted 25 critical minerals from absolutely all the duties. Duties have also been especially the capital goods for manufacturing of the solar cells and panels. So the inputs which were required for the exporters, there has been some rationalization. There has also been making the in terms of the copper also, you have seen in some copper which is also largely imported and is a ingredient for our domestic manufacturing for the electronics and the electronic industry, wherein some duty rationalization has been done. So I think it is one. And then more than that, I think on the export front, if you see, is some rationalization on the shipping lines, the foreign shipping lines operated, wherein some the tax rationalization has been done. And the most important on the external sector is that the e-commerce hubs, which is in case now India has to improve its exports through MSMEs and what I think the Prime Minister calls as a district as an export hub, that it's a very new scheme which the Ministry of Commerce is working very comprehensively. And then there is a ODOP scheme, which is the one district one product. To make that reality, what is required is that they have to be given an access to the market, and I think the technological intervention which I think this government has done in terms of making that facilitating that e-commerce hub. So that's I think very credible, and I'm very sure that it will go a long way. Agriculture is another thing in which I think we were looking at some intervention. Now agriculture intervention this time are in a very strategic in nature in terms of intervention with the ICT, information and communication technology, digitization, digital survey of those farmers, and digital public infrastructure making available to the farmers. So with this digital public infrastructure getting available to the farmers, nowhere in the world is going to add to our agriculture sector to be competitive, domestic front as well as the external front. Most importantly in this is that we have done some rationalization in case of the oil seed and pulses, where groundnut is one, but even other oil seed, because over the years, last about a decade or so, India has become a major importer of the edible oils. And this is what Prime Minister said, is that the India's Atmanirbharta comes through the agriculture route, and in which certain intervention is done. So I hope that in time to come, the agriculture also gains, and our the trade deficit by way of the import of the agriculture product is also taken care of. So I think this seems to be a very important incentive intervention which I think the government is going to do.
Okay, let me bring in Lieutenant General Anil Bhatt as well to talk about what has been done in this budget for space, and this 1,000 crore rupees allocation for space tech. Lieutenant General Anil Bhatt, to what extent do you think this will prove useful as far as India's space ambitions are concerned, particularly the participation of the private sector? And if you look at startups, the scrapping of the angel tax also kicks in there.
So definitely with what the government has written and what we aspire, that in the next 10 years, our space economy should grow at least by 5 times. And if that has to happen, one thing very important is that our startups are supported.
We seem to have lost that link with General Bhatt at the moment, but Professor Joshi, in terms of the kind of incentives that are being given to MSMEs, if you look at how even for giving them loans, their assessment parameter has been, there's been an addition to it in terms of to what extent are they digitized, to how will this help them in accessing markets better as well, in terms of getting capital and then using that money through these export hubs as well?
No, MSME, the most important factor is that, the ease of their operation, in India.
So a bit of deregulation there.
Deregulation, and which I think is a very, very targeted intervention which the government has done in terms of MSME. MSME is characterized by, lot of number of people. Now MSMEs have also becoming lot of technology savvy, innovative, and, using disruptive technologies like never before. So I think the host of the incentives and the ecosystem which is being created, one in terms of getting loan, B in terms of getting technology, C is in terms of getting market by the e-commerce hubs, is I am very sure that will go a long way with them. And most importantly, rather than financial incentives or a support, what the MSME need is, let them work, reduce the regulation, and don't interfere. Like if you see, when we see, compare China and India and other MSMEs, which is a major force in export and the development in countries like Germany, the MSMEs have become extremely important, is wherein because they use a cluster approach. In India we have also got a lot of clusters, and wherein I think there has been a some targeted interventions. So MSMEs basically operate not on economies of a scale, but economies of scope, wherein those clusters where these MSMEs are operated. But I am very sure that a targeted intervention has been done, and it will go a long way.
If we talk about those 100 plug-and-play hubs that are going to be created, for a foreign investor, I mean, what are they kind of looking at to come into the country where everything is provided, this plug-and-play system? How much of an incentive is it, first of all, and which cities?
Do you think for foreign investors a reduction in the tax that is imposed on the earnings of the profits of the foreign companies, it's been reduced by 5% from 40 to 35%. Is that a decent enough incentive?
No, I think it is a decent enough, but more than tax incentive, what a foreign investor looks is its capital has to be safe, and more than that, in case of a problem, he should be able to, the exit should be safe. And now this plug and play kind of a model is giving safety in terms of the exit when a foreign operator is unwilling.
So plug and play also implies exit.
It also employs exit and shifting the location from location A to B. So I think in this it will certainly facilitate to the foreign investors. And more than that, I think.
But does that work largely in the high tech sector, or what kind of sectors would this work in?
No, it work high tech sector, but slowly even the all MSMEs which are going to be viable, or even manufacturing is getting high tech. Slowly, so now days are gone where manufacturing was, that kind of a machinery in, 50 years before or so. So those days are gone. Now I think even manufacturing is high tech. We use a lot of AI. We use some artificial intelligence, if not completely robotics in manufacturing. Some automation is always there, and therefore all manufacturing is high tech. Now there are very labor intensive manufacturing. Say you talk of the textile sector, or say you call handloom, but 80% of the things we call handloom is not handloom, it is power loom. So some technology is always required, and now with this plug and play kind of a model, and more than the enabling environment, which I am sure all ministries under the present regime are working very comprehensively to provide them a platform which enables them, and to the foreign investors give them a confidence that they should be placed in India.
Let's go once again to Lieutenant General Anil Bhatt, who is joining us from the Indian Space Association. General Bhatt, what is in the budget, for space enthusiasts? How do you look at the budget?
So most importantly, the government aspires, and that the space economy in the next 5 years, next 10 years should grow 5 times. And for that to happen, one of the most important things in the space domain, and especially to support the startups, is capital. Hence, 1,000 crore for a venture capital fund has been announced by the government. This will really help new startups who require money for development of their ideas and to grow in this sector. Similarly, a very important tax, angel tax, which was for investments which are done in startups, will now be discontinued. This again is a very good Also, research and development, there is Anusandhan National Research Fund of 1 lakh crores, and for developing, doing research and developing prototypes. And this fund also definitely helps the space sector. Even the critical minerals where custom duties have been reduced will help us, because some of these minerals are also imported by the space industry. And also even the DPI in agriculture, which is a very important target laid down by the government, and will also have the support of the space sector. Because in agriculture, remote sensing resources,
लैंड में hills में apostrophe क्यों लगा हुआ है? Apostrophe हटाइए.
and this will help the DPI.
Right. Yes, we are told that we are joined, privileged to have with us Dr. Arvind Veermani, member Niti Aayog, who's joining us, former chief economic advisor, eminent economist. Dr. Veermani, from your standpoint, what is this budget doing? I mean, is it achieving, the objectives of an Atmanirbhar Bharat, the whole idea of, the Viksit Bharat and things like that? Dr. Veermani, can you hear me?
So,
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
if from our perspective, if you look at the whole idea of Viksit Bharat, growth of employment and the economy, hello?
Yeah, go ahead, sir, please.
Growth of employment and the economy is critical to everything else, because the growth and employment generates revenues. Yeah, generates revenues which are then used for all the social sector objectives, etc. So, in my view, the most important message in that direction for the budget is the recognition that employment and skills are two sides of the same coin. So, to have a job, you have to have the skills, and if you have skills for which there is no job, those are infructuous in a way. So, connecting job skills with employment is the key part of this budget, and there are a whole bunch of programs. There are so many and very important, which I can't even remember to list. But whether it's in MSMEs, creating learning and skilling. So skilling happens both by learning by doing and by people training. So there are a number of incentives, nudges, pushes, financing funds to make sure that youth, older people get the skills which are needed for the job. So I would say that is the one big message. The second is more technical, but very briefly I'll mention there is this endless debate of manufacturing versus services. So what the budget is saying, everything is important. Agriculture is important, manufacturing is important, services is important. Why? Why is everything important? Because there are states at different levels of development. We have states which are good at agriculture, which can still benefit from development of agriculture. There are states which could benefit from manufacturing, and similarly services. So I think that is the second important message from this. Yeah,
Dr. Veermani, you talked about skilling. So let's talk specifically about this internship scheme that has been introduced. 1 crore youth to get internships, paid internships, with these top 500 companies, part of their CSR responsibilities. Do you think that this is something that is completely out of the box, and how would compliance be built into this?
so compliance is always a difficult thing, but how the system works is that smaller companies don't have the excess people to spend on training. So really much of the real training happens in large companies, because they have a structure, they have people who can train, they have the systems. So the idea is that if the large companies train, let's say 100 people and they have only requirement for 20 people, then 80 of these diffuse into the rest of the economy, and the MSMEs are the ones who will pick them up and benefit from it. So that is the basic idea. Now as far as compliance is concerned, we know that if most of this happens in large companies, established companies, they have less incentive to cheat. Of course, there are always one or two bad apples, but it's more difficult to monitor a whole lot of smaller companies than it is to monitor, let's say, the 500 top companies. So I think that is the intention, that if we can incentivize them, use these funds which they already have to expand their training programs, then as I mentioned, if they train more people than they need, then these people actually go into the SME sector and will help in raising the quality and quality of their products.
Dr. Veermani, how do you view the fiscal consolidation roadmap and perhaps, you know, I mean, the fact that India's growth story is requiring that kind of a boost to maintain an 8% growth? Do you see, I mean, more some sort of stimulus required?
No, I think, you know, the stimulus was required and more like a safety net, which was required during the pandemic. Now we are out of it, and of course we had a large fall and a large recovery, but the last 2 years are really putting us back on the trend growth, and surprisingly strong growth. I had expected 7%, but it's gone above that even. As you know, it was like roughly 8% and more than 7%. So their stimulus is not required anymore. The issue is to sustain growth, and in that context, a conservative fiscal policy approach, which the government has had for a long time, that we only exceed the fiscal timeline if there is a reason for it, as there was in the pandemic. So it's good that we are back on the fiscal trend line which has been outlined by the finance minister, and in fact have done better than that. And I hope that we achieve these, and that gives a very good signal for example, for international rating of our capital market, etc. So it has a positive effect on both the ratings and the FDI investors, who feel more secure that there will not be inflationary upheavals and other disruptions like that.
Right. Dr. Veermani, yesterday when the economic survey came out, it kind of reflected a bit of a China conundrum as to, you know, what should the approach be towards China. Do we need investments coming in from China, or it's better in our national interest to avoid it altogether? The opinion in the economic survey was something that perhaps the CAA got a lot of flack for also online. But is that in any way reflected in this budget at all?
Well, as you know, the budget is more about money, right? It's about expenditures and about taxes. So you are quite right. There is no strategy of dealing with China here, but I think that is quite intentional, because it's a complicated issue which involves a lot of businesses, stakeholders, etc. It's probably done in some kind of a committee or commission or somewhere where all these stakeholders can be brought in and discussed and thrashed out. It's less a matter of expenditure. So you're quite right. I don't see much reflection of that particular issue. However, the finance minister has said that within the next 6 months or so, some kind of a review of the customs duties, for example. So that would be the appropriate place to bring in this issue of how to deal with China. So it's still possible. Okay. It's still within the budget in that sense.
She also talked about a review of the income tax regime while making some announcement related to direct taxes, be it the new income tax regime where the slabs have been changed, and of course the deduction has also been increased. But there were changes as far as capital gains is concerned, or even, for example, the indexation benefit for real estate investments, which has had an impact in the markets as well. Do you feel that people have sort of overreacted to it?
Yeah. Well, I'm not an expert on markets, so I wouldn't say that. But as some people have pointed out, the reduction
every
in
economist is a bit of an expert on
personal
markets
tax
too.
rates, which she spelled out very clearly. I think she even gave the loss of certain amount. So that factor, I think, will gradually sink in. What they are focusing on is the increase in the effective long-term capital gains, and that is very visible and obviously has an immediate impact. There are also some other measures which are positive for FDI and external investors, and as I said, given the reduction in personal taxes, there would also be some consumption effects, but probably the markets will take some time to absorb those and analyze what the impact may be in the next couple of months.
Dr. Veermani,
I kind of assume, or I would say, I would forecast that it will go back to normal in a week or so.
Dr. Veermani, as far as agriculture is concerned, yesterday the economic survey said that, you know, agriculture should be considered as an engine, and we see that there has been a lot of, you know, there have been programs that have been placed in the budget which are giving a priority to the agricultural sector. But, you know, in terms of trying to actually make this sector a growth sector, an engine of growth, after all, it is one of those that's not quite part of the growth story, isn't it? When we're looking at its services that's pushing the growth of India, manufacturing is just sort of lagging behind. Can agriculture really become a big growth story for India, and can we export and things like that?
Yeah. So, as you know, agriculture and irrigation are state subjects. So, there is always that limitation of how much the union government can do. But I think a direct answer to your question, we have several states, they happen to be in the south, which are diversifying out of crop agriculture into non-crop, like fisheries and other things, whose growth has been phenomenal. You know, I was also surprised when I first came across it. You know, like the average growth of agriculture is 3 to 5%, but some of these states, agriculture and allied, have grown by 7% and 9%. So there is a way. I think what we should do is that all the states should see how and what these successful states. Of course, for a while, Madhya Pradesh, for example, was grew very fast. But that was crop agriculture, and that crop opportunity is becoming less and less. Of course, there is something in the budget on natural farming, etc. There are these niche areas, but the big growth can come from the allied sectors, whether it's milk, fisheries, forestry, even putting solar panels on agriculture. So innovation of that kind is where the agricultural growth can really take off. And of course, again, as the budget recognizes, research and development is very important, whether it for crop resilient agriculture or new types of agriculture or new type of crops. There has to be the R&D and other things coming out of the agricultural universities for the farmers to adopt these things.
Dr. Arvind Veermani, thank you very much for giving us your time and you know, your views on the budget. Thank you, sir.
All right, let's just bring you some of the key excerpts of the Finance Minister's budget speech while presenting the Union budget in the Lok Sabha. The FM said that the government is focusing on the poor, farmers, women as well as youth.
As mentioned in the interim budget, we need to focus on 4 major castes, namely the Garib, Mahilayein, Yuva and Annadata. the poor, women, youth, and the farmer. For Annadata, we announced higher minimum support prices a month ago for all major crops, delivering on the promise of at least a 50% margin over costs. Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana was extended for 5 years, benefiting more than 80 crore people.
The Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, announced 5 schemes focusing on 4.1 crore youth over the next 5 years. The initiative, it aims at bolstering employment, enhancing skilling, also supporting MSMEs and uplifting the middle class.
We particularly focus on employment, skilling, MSMEs, and the middle class. I am happy to announce the Prime Minister's package of 5 schemes and initiatives to facilitate employment, skilling, and other opportunities for 4.1 crore youth over a 5-year period, with a central outlay of 2 lakh crore rupees. This year, I've made a provision of 1.48 lakh rupees, 1.48 lakh crore rupees for education, employment, and skilling.
The FM also said that it would release new 109 high-yielding, climate-resilient varieties of crops in the country. During her budget presentation, she said that in the next 2 years, 1 crore farmers will be helped in natural farming.
New 109 high-yielding and climate-resilient varieties of 32 field and horticultural crops will be released for cultivation by farmers. Natural farming. In the next 2 years, 1 crore farmers across the country will be initiated into natural farming, supported by certification and branding. Our government, in partnership with the states, will facilitate the implementation of the digital public infrastructure in agriculture for coverage of farmers and their lands in 3 years.
Well, under the union budget, revised tax slabs were announced. In the new regime, tax slab of 5% has been implemented towards personal income tax for salaried employees having an income between 3 lakhs and 7 lakh rupees.
In the new tax regime, the tax rate structure is proposed to be revised as follows: 0 to 3 lakh rupees, nil; 3 to 7 lakh rupees, 5%; 7 to 10 lakh rupees, 10%; 10 to 12 lakh rupees, 15%; 12 to 15 lakh rupees, 20%; and above 15 lakh rupees, 30%.
The Finance Minister also said that under the new tax regime, the personal income tax standard deduction will be increased from 50,000 rupees to 75,000.
Coming to personal income tax rates, I have 2 announcements to make for those opting for the new tax regime. First, the standard deduction for salaried employees is proposed to be increased from 50,000 to 75,000 rupees. Similarly, deduction on family pension for pensioners is proposed to be enhanced from 15,000 to 25,000 rupees. This will provide relief to about 4 crore salaried individuals and pensioners.
Well, that's all we have for the moment. I'd like to thank Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us and enlightening us on the external sector, your priority sector. And well, that's for the moment, I guess we are concluding. But
yes,
after
we will
break,
be carrying this forward with me. I'll still be here. Mark is going to take a little bit of break, and Amritpal is going to join me. Mark, to take this forward, because we've still got a lot to talk about where the union budget is concerned. It is causing quite a few ripples in different sectors of the economy, and we'll be taking them up as well. Thanks for watching for the moment, and do keep watching this special coverage.